One of my toxic traits is that I'm constantly adding daily tool watches to my collection. It's the definition of insanity. From G-Shocks to Seikos to you name it, I can't get enough. Which is pointless because the whole purpose of these watches is to remove the need for any other watches. What can I say? I'm addicted and there's no other explanation. It's better than selling my prison pocket for crack money, I guess. In this tumultuous downward spiral of addiction, one brand has always stuck out: Citizen. In my experience, Citizen is a brand that doesn't ask for much and yet provides it all. Not necessarily an underdog, but the humble second fiddle that plays better than the first chair. Unlike Seiko, I never have to internally justify any of my Citizen watches. They simply exist to perform, and perhaps that's why I take them for granted. All that aside, let's talk about 6 Citizens that are legends in my book. Most of these watches have long since been discontinued, but if you're willing to put in a little effort, you can find them often at absolute bargain prices. Let's start off with the Citizen Tough. I'm not gonna lie to you, I dislike the dial design. Don't ask me why, I just don't like it. But what this thing is capable of, in terms of reliability and durability, so greatly exceeds any other watch by such a significant margin that my brain only sees this thing as beautiful. Okay, so it's just a three-handed watch that does three-handed watch stuff, so maybe my enthusiasm is overkill. But if you're a wrist incel like me, then all I can say is this maxes out the stats of what a three-handed watch can do. From the sapphire crystal, the unbeatable loom application, the vault-like sturdiness of the screw-down crown, the monocoque case, and 200 meters of water resistance, this is a benchmark watch. It is a standard-setting watch. Once you've experienced the Tough, it will be hard not to judge all other watches based on how they compare to it. I said it has a monocoque case, which means there's no separate case back. It's all just one single piece of milled steel. So whatever could go wrong on an inferior watch can't go wrong here. You might be wondering what's up with the bracelet. This is a little modification I did myself. I swapped bracelets from the Tough chronograph because I felt like it was more appropriate here. It gives me G-Shock combi bracelet vibes and I don't know, just seemed fitting. Next on the list is the Hyper Aqualand. I don't really subscribe to the concept of Grail watch. It's a term that's become so bloated with attainable non-Grail watches that I write it off anytime I hear it. With that said, the Hyper Aqualand was my Grail watch. And by Grail watch, I mean a watch that I genuinely believed I would never acquire ever in my life. Not because of price, but because I simply didn't know enough about it to do any kind of meaningful research. I saw it on someone's wrist, but I couldn't make out the brand and it felt too awkward to ask the person about it. It would have been like seeing a pretty girl for a second right before she got on a train and trying to look her up in a phone book. What would I even type in Google? Metal digital watch that looks good as fuck? I wonder what search results would come up. Fast forward to 7 years later, with it living rent-free in my mind all that time, and by the grace of horological Jesus, one of my general foremen happened to have one that was issued to him back when he was a Navy diver. If you know me at all, you know I went full retard and bombarded him with questions about it. As luck would have it, I found a new old stock mint condition one on Facebook Marketplace shortly after. There's no denying that the technology here is dated, but there's also no denying that it's a beautiful and historically relevant watch. The Hyper Aqualand is one of, if not the very first, commercial watches to incorporate a digital depth gauge and water sensing electrode. It's a dive computer without being an actual dive computer, so at the time this thing was able to provide a level of redundancy never before seen. Purely on a superficial level, the harmony of digital and steel is top-notch and a true head-turner. With a timeless design and a perfect balance of utilitarian finishing and luxurious highlights, I classify this watch as the ultimate digital watch to add to your collection. Do it. Do it now. Taking a break from quartz, let's talk about the NH6930. Also known as the Autozilla, This is a perfect example of the Japanese ability to discontinue absolutely epic watches. It's kind of a Marmite watch, built like a hockey puck and not really practical in the day-to-day life of your average beta male. I can understand why this inevitably faded away into obscurity. But that doesn't mean I agree with it. In the same way that nobody likes the Omega Plot Prof, nobody really liked this one, and that's because they're all idiots. Glory does not favor the watch that dares to be anything other than 38mm and boring as fuck, so the Autozilla was doomed from the start. Fortunately, there is an ever-growing cult following for it. As time goes on, people are coming to their senses and realizing just how incredible it is. Objectively speaking, there's little more you could ask for. Sapphire, titanium, and ISO rated up to 1,000 meters, it is a watch that's meant for work all day, every day. You might roll your eyes at the 8000 series Miyota movement, but keep in mind that it made sense when this watch was released, and even today it's a movement that still works plenty fine for whatever you need it for. I'm not usually a fan of titanium watches. I dislike how light and uneventful they feel on the wrist, but the Autozilla is different. It's light, but dense. It's kind of like Bruce Lee. It's a small Asian thing that is jam-packed with muscle. At the end of the day, the Autozilla is an epic watch, and my heart weeps for the next generation that doesn't even know of its existence. Next is the ProMaster Land GMT. This one is a special edition collaboration with Porter, which is a subsidiary of the Japanese fashion brand Yoshida & Company. But for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing as a regular ProMaster Land. Just look at this thing. It's got a material charisma that'll make you bite your lower lip. It's monochrome and steel in all the right places, with design elements that all make sense in both form and function. Performance is a given. It's nothing you haven't seen before from any other eco-drive, but as the adage goes, don't fix something that's not broken. Speaking of the eco-drive, I bought mine new old stock, so unfortunately it was sitting in a box in some warehouse slowly dying. When I received it, it was pretty much dead. A day under sunlight and it's operating at 100% like it came right out of the factory, which shows how robust the eco-drive movement is. It's watches like this that make me question more expensive luxury watches. Why pay so much when you've got Beauty and Beast right here? And admittedly, I have no answer for you. With watches like this, there is no reason to pay more. Second to last on my list is the Fugu. It's pronounced Fugu, but because this is a family show, I'll adjust the name. Being an automatic watch, its timekeeping is objectively inferior to all of the other quartz watches mentioned. But for the watch nerds out there still clinging on to this obsolete technology, I can't think of any other watch, pound for pound, that does it better than this. The Fugu is one of those rare unicorns that does everything right. From top to bottom, it has all the qualities your typical wrist incel is going to want from a watch. A clicky bezel, a sapphire crystal, unbeatable lume, a screw-down crown, a screw-down case back, an ISO certification, and an automatic movement so I can keep telling myself it has a soul. And while I joke about automatic movements, it is a legitimate interest of mine and important that my watch has one. The only thing I can say to quartz purists is that this is my dedicated deployment watch and it has not once failed me. In all these shitty environments and bumps and knocks it's been through, because it has been through some bumps and knocks, I've never had to reset the time once. And on those long nights in the Arctic Circle where night is literally all day long, it somehow manages to stay glowing, ready to show me the time anytime. The rock-solid construction, watch nerd qualities, and manageable price tag make this a fully 360-degree enjoyable wrist-wearing experience. And there's nothing better than a watch you can enjoy and not give a shit about at the same time. There's really nothing better than that. For the last watch of this episode, I'm kinda cheating. It's the older version of the Fugu style, and while I could have thrown it in with the Fugu, this legendary watch deserves its own spot on the list. If you asked me to find a watch that was a certified diver, unique, had military heritage, and was priced under $200, I'd start calling you Phoebe Cates, because I might as well enjoy who I'm talking to while we're both in Fantasyland. But the NY0040 has all of that. And you know what? Nobody is talking about it. For the life of me, I don't understand why this thing isn't more popular. Everybody loves a watch with ties to the military, and for the price of a shitty hooker, you can get a watch that was once issued to sailors in the Italian Navy. And that's not some mall ninja gimmick either. It's a serious watch, a seriously good-looking watch, and I swear you are dead to me if you aren't putting your order in for one at this very moment. So, it's got some dated features, like a mineral crystal, and some versions have non-hacking movements. But I promise you this is a watch worth owning and still very much competitively relevant today. In the ever-expanding market of value-centric Chinese homages, this is one of the few OG big-name brand watches that holds its own with no hype necessary. To any budding newcomer to watch collecting, this would easily be one of my first recommendations. You know what? Just go ahead and buy one. Seriously, buy one right now. And that's the end of the list. It goes without saying that this isn't an all-encompassing list of legendary citizens. There are so many citizens that qualify, but for the sake of time and my sanity, I'm just showcasing these 6, and I'm sure I'll come up with another video in the future. Please share whatever your picks would be. It's great to be introduced to models I may have never heard of, or even just to know what your thought process is behind your choices. And that's all I got for now. Stay classy. I sure as hell won't.